Good evening, friends, and welcome back to Mahabharata Myths. So, this is the series where we take a look at misconceptions and myths from the greatest epic in the world, and we present to you facts based on authentic sources. So, this is our third episode in this series, and we have already completed two episodes. So, in case you have missed these episodes, I would request you to please take a look at the video. Below there is an option show more. So, if you click on that link, you will be able to see the links to the previous videos. And also, I request you to please subscribe to the channel so that you will get updates on these videos. So today we have a full house. So my name is Deepak. I'm the host of this show and an author. Joining me is fellow author and co-host Pranshu Saxena. And today we have two guests. In the previous episode, we had author Bharti who had joined us as a guest. Now this time we have two authors. Roopal Garg is joining us from the US. She is one of the authors of Unsung Valor. Now this is a book that's the book which you see on the screen. That's a book where Pranshu, Roopal, me, and seven other authors have co-authored. And also joining with us is Semanti Chakraborty. So she's the author of the trilogy on Yudhishthira. So it is called as the Dharma series. The first book which has been released is called Rise of Dharma. So you see that on the screen. So this book introduces us to Yudhishthira. So we are taken through the beginning of Yudhishthira's journey, his birth, relation with his brothers, his cousins, then all the happenings at the Lakshagriha and so on. And it ends at the Rajasuya Yajna. So later on, of course, in the second part, she will probably go to the most important part, which is the dice game. So anyway, we'll hear from her in a moment. So before we start off, let's just quickly run through what myths we have covered so far. So the first myth which we discussed was that Duryodhana was the rightful heir to the Hastinapura throne. And this myth we dispelled because Dhritarashtra himself has said that he was not the king. So how could his son be the king? And the second and third myths were related to Karna. One was, of course, that he was a Suta or low caste. So we already discussed that Sutas were not low caste. In fact, he was considered equivalent to Kshatriya. So if he was rejected by Drona, it is because Drona considered him evil and not worthy of having the Brahmastra. As far as Draupadi rejecting Karna, that is a pure myth. So it does not appear in the critical edition. And then we discussed the myth of Arjuna abducting Subhadra without her permission. So this again is a myth because it is Krishna who encouraged Arjuna to take away Subhadra so that she gets the right husband. In fact, in the southern edition, she is a willing participant and even drives the chariot. Then there is one of the most famous, or can we say infamous myth, which is of Draupadi laughing at Duryodhana. So this is a very sad myth because this never happened. So in the Hall of Illusions, Draupadi never laughed at Duryodhana. He told a lie to Dhritarashtra. And the last myth was about Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira agreed to the dice game because he was an expert gambler. So this again is a myth which we have discussed. So Yudhishthira did not know gambling and neither was he willing to play gamble at the game of dice. It was by circumstances that forced him to take this decision. So now since we have Semanti here with us, she's the author of the book Rise of Dharma. So I would request her to start off by talking a bit about the infamous dice game and why is Yudhishthira so much reviled for his conducting the game. What are the real facts?
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Shivanti myself. Thank you so much, Deepak, for inviting me here and for giving so much appreciation for me and for the book. So, yes, the topic that Yudhishthira and this popular image as a gambler. I must say that this image is so popular now in people's mind that whenever people just hear the very name of Yudhishthira, the first thing they visualize is a dice board. As if that is the very first impression of his character and the very identity of the character. That is like, oh, Yudhishthira, he's like kind of Yudhishthira and gambler are synonyms. Like this is the people's perception about him. But how much truth is there, that we have to see. I always had this question in my mind, that someone known as King of Dharma, the son of Dharma, who is supported by Sri Krishna himself, how much truth is there that he is seen only as a gambling addict or an expert gambler and not beyond that? So, yes, from the original Mahabharata, the critical edition, what we see that the first, there are two things. That one thing is that he was expert gambler, that's why he agreed to play, but that was very beautifully explained in the last episode, that he did not know how to play. That is said by everyone. Draupadi says in the dice hall, Draupadi herself says that my husband cannot play, he does not know how to play. Krishna also once says near the end. Also, we have Shakuni's words that he loves to play but he cannot play. That we know. So at that time of dice game, he did not know how to play. He learned it later during his exile from sage Brihadasva. He learned it later, and then he became the expert. Not before that. So that is one thing, that he was not an expert gambler. Second thing is that, was he a gambling addict as we think him to be? Was he willing to play? Was he like that, okay, I got a gambling invitation, I'm very happy, I have to readily agree and I have to run there to play? Let's see. The first thing I will tell, that is, we have to see Draupadi's words. When Draupadi was brought to the dice hall, she is also saying that Yudhishthira did not know how to play and he was made to play. He did not want to play, he did not willingly stack me, but he was made to do so. So, how much truth is there? Definitely, Draupadi knows her husband very well. So, definitely, there must be some truth. We have to see that. We have to go back to the when the invitation comes. Vidura brings the invitation. That was a very nice thing. That is, it was a friendly dice match. Many things, but even after hearing that word, that friendly dice match he is being invited to, Yudhishthira is saying that, the first thing he is saying, that if we gamble, we might end up involving ourselves into some conflict. Gambling might lead to some conflicts. So I don't want to gamble, I don't want to play. Here I must add another thing, that the very basic nature of Yudhishthira, that was very peace loving nature. He was always against of any kind of conflict. He was always against of any creating any kind of fights or like something like that. I would like to share one thing, that is, after the Rajasuya sacrifice, just before this incident, the invitation comes. Maharishi Vyasa actually warned him that you will become the central cause of a mass destruction. Due to your cause, the Kshatriyas of all over the world will see the destruction, will get destroyed. That disturbed Yudhishthira so much that he even told his brothers that I don't want to survive anymore after hearing this. I don't want to become the cause of such a destruction, and better I die. And because if I am not there, then who will create the cause of this destruction? So better I give up my life. But so here one thing I'm sharing this incident, because how noble his thought was, how peace loving he was, that he wanted to prevent such a disaster, even at the cost of his own life. But definitely his brothers did not agree and he had to change his mind finally. But he made a promise, he took an oath that, okay, I will not die, but I will not create any conflict, any argument with anyone from now on, so that I can prevent this destruction due to my cause. So I can stop myself being the cause of this destruction. And he said a beautiful thing, that I will love everyone, I will treat everyone as my own children from now on. So this was the noble thought he did have, and he did try his best. From his side, he did try his best to prevent this. But even after so much of precaution, he could not prevent this. That is another thing. That is a sad thing, actually. Okay, so coming back to the Vidura episode. So when the invitation comes, he is saying that it is gambling is a cause of conflict. I don't want to play. Now here the naturally question will come, that why did he agree to play? Why did he agree to play? The reason is, he himself is saying here, that if I am challenged, then I cannot refuse. If I am challenged, I have to accept that. And finally, that only happened even before the dice game began. He seems that he is trying to convince Shakuni so that he can stop the play, so that he can convince him and he agrees and he does not give him the challenge. But that doesn't happen. Again, we see that he is criticizing gambling again and again. So this is definitely not a gambling addict sword, that he is saying that gambling is immoral. The wise sages did not advise it, and gambling has nothing to do with the kshatriya valor, and we should go to the battlefield and we should fight instead. Why this gambling game which has no purushartha like this? This is not like kshatriya dharma, and we better end up with the battlefield and not this game where luck prevails and where the deceit prevails. He is also saying, I do not want to win anything through the means of deceit, and he is saying gambling will be a deceitful thing. So he is not having the desire to win anything from this gambling. That means definitely he is unwilling to play. But then he had to accept because he was challenged. Shokuni is saying that, okay, the emperor, you are so much scared, so you go home. You don't have to play. You are so much scared, you go. But that was an issue of prestige, because being the king, being the emperor, if he now go back, then he will be called a coward. So that is the thing. Then people will say that King Yudhishthira could not accept the challenge of a mere dice game. He is so much coward. So that is what he could not do, and he had to accept the challenge because of his promise. So thus the game began, and once it began, he could not just stop it. He had to continue because the host king Dhritarashtra did not give the permission to stop the game. We see that Vidura is again and again asking Dhritarashtra only to stop the game, but he is not asking, even not even once he is asking Yudhishthira that, son, you get up and you leave the game. He is not asking Yudhishthira, he is only asking Dhritarashtra. That means only the host king was holding the authority to stop the game. But since Dhritarashtra did not want to stop the game, it continued. So I would like to end with another thing, that is my second book, Trials of Dharma. Will have this game of dice in details. It is starting with the game of dice only, and it will be shown in first person POV of Yudhishthira. First person perspective will be shown. So I hope it will interest you all, and please read my first book also, and please leave a review. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, Semanti, and sharing your views about Yudhishthira. So hopefully in the future episodes you will be with us again. So thank you. Okay, so now continuing with the discussion, let's go straight away to the myths for the day. Now, Krishna saved Draupadi during the Vastraharana. So this is, of course, one of the most common and popular myth. So we see image of Krishna with his hand raised and releasing saris to cover Draupadi during the Vastraharana. So, is this true? Did this really happen? What do you have to say about this, Pranshu?
So, can you hear me? Yeah. So
Yeah,
basically, yeah, Krishna saving Draupadi is not only one of the major misconceptions, it is one of the major myths which basically tells a lot about our culture, our civilization, our the people, the Indian people as such. And this is where I mean, of course, Krishna is responsible for everything. Malinga bowling that full toss and Dhoni converting it and hitting that helicopter shot. You can trace it back to Krishna doing something about this at one point in time. But here we are differentiating between the deity, the God himself, and the human aspect of his avatar. And this is very important because you see, the first human avatar was Parshuram, who had no idea that he was an avatar. The next one was Ram, who was only told after he fulfilled his life's mission that he is an avatar. Krishna was a complete human avatar, born with the knowledge that he's a human avatar, and this like he had the knowledge of his avatarhood. He had the knowledge of his own power, and literally, as Vyas describes in various Purans, they prepared for it. Shrikar was born across births to be trained to become Nand, to hold the baby, in his hand. That balak, who can like cry like at any moment. a child can cry for anything, like not having milk or just not being cuddled enough, and can destroy the whole universe. So they're all prepared for it, that where Krishna will have the full power from the very beginning itself, and which he shows from like Putna, Trinavrat, and all those Rakshasas who come. So it's like, and so Krishna's power is anyway reflected from there. But now he is, uh, and another part of it is that how Vyas himself takes pains to tell us the difference between Krishna, the human avatar, and the what some Gita, commentators say Para Vasudev, the Vasudev inside Krishna, the Vishnu inside Krishna. And even like, even in Gita, you see it in several occasions where when Dhritarashtra is being told the story by Sanjay, the conversation, the question and answer session between Arjun and Krishna is sometimes between Arjun, Krishna, and Vasudev. Like, where one place, even Vasudev say when Krishna says, among Vrishnis I am Krishna, among the among Pandavas I am Dhananjay, among Rishis I am Vyas. I am also, and a very interesting point. He says I'm Ushna as well. Ushna is Shukracharya, right? So that's a very interesting point. Krishna just makes right there and then Vasudev, and so here we know that Krishna, the human aspect is changing, and now in the concept here, right? mm, Krishna tells us in Mahabharata, as we will show later, that he tells us in Vanaparv that he with a shal of war while Dyut was on, because he would have stopped Dyut. And this is also in the critical edition, right? And in the Krishna, the human avatar, was willing to stop this seminal event from happening, which put into motion by Krishna Dvapai, and for the other human avatar, we already talked about, right? We have this Nar, we have Dhananjay among Pandavas, and Krishna Dvapayan. The other human avatar of Vishnu has put into motion this seminal chain of events. He has tied Yudhishthira into a corner to accept and play that Dyut, because he want to continue with his Bhumi Bharharan project, literally. And this is where basically Krishna falls into, and Krishna, the human aspect, is fighting the very idea which the other human aspect of Krishna, of Vishnu himself, right? Krishna Devapan is setting into motion, and that's what Aurobindo describes. Another commentator on Gita, Aurobindo, describes that Brahma is a perfect sublime being. Why would he need to do anything, create something imperfect? Because earth is his Leela. And in that Leela, in that Brahma's own Leela, he has trapped Krishna's avatarhood. Like Krishna is in love with humanity, with us, and with his own humanity as well. He is not willing to inflict that whatever Draupadi is going to go through, he would not have inflict. And that's basically what Shailendra says, कि दुनिया बनाने वाले क्या तेरे मन में समाई, काहे को दुनिया बनाई. So Aurobindo answers that question, and in that basically he said कि तू भी तो तड़पा होगा मन को बना के. That Krishna is literally the is bound by his own love for his Sakhi to prevent that from happening. So Krishna Devapayan removes him from the place here. So Krishna is not there, but who saves Draupadi? And that is a very important point here.
Just
Draupadi,
before that, where was Krishna at that time?
he was in the Shal, he was fighting Shalv. He was in the war with Shalv. He was on an island right across Dwarka. Shalv had found an island, and from there with the Saab Viman he was attacking. So Krishna was busy in that conflict. He was far away. He was not at all like involved in the going ons, in the invitations and everything, because he says that if I had known about it, I would have come straight away. And this is where the human Krishna is coming out. He's trying to the human aspects, the human parts of the avatar, like fighting the avatar part. Like they want to set in change certain set of motions. They are thinking for the worldly good. But here Krishna is willing to say, oh, I don't care about the worldly good. I want to care about my Sakhis, what happens to her. So that's where the focus is. That he's basically willing to change all that. And this is where the other part comes in, that who was the savior then, who saved Draupadi then at the Dyut? And the answer is Dharma. The Mahat, the thought of Brahma, manifests as Lord Dharma, father to Nar, Narayan, and Hari. And Krishna appealed when she's being dragged, right? She appeals to Hari, she appeals to Nara, she appeals to Vishnu himself, and they're all there. Hari is Bhim, Nar, the part of the twin Nar Narayan is Arjun, and Yudhishthir and Vidur are the Yam Dharm themselves manifest there in the Sabha. And the Dharm, the manifest protector around all of us, he is there. Dharma is always around us. Dharma is the cocoon around which the society itself, dharma dharan karta hai, basically, as we say, right? The society itself. And the Krishna, the human avatar, was going to derail the project because what basically Krishna, the Apayana set into motion, because we cannot have the war, because one of the most important part of our culture is friendship. We do not hurt family. We cannot hurt family for whatever reason, however they do that. See, Kauravas were again and again trying to hurt Pandavas, but they were able to, because of their own alertness, their own luck, you could say, they were able to escape it. Bhim was poisoned, he survived. He was poisoned again, he survived. They tried several times all these things, all shenanigans, but they were able to survive it. And so even Krishna himself could not hurt his own cousin. 100 times he had to give chances to Shishupal. He did very bad crimes, but it was only a testimony of those 100 crimes in front of everybody in the Sabha that Krishna was able to execute and become the judge, jury, and executioner. The same part Yudhishthir also gave his 100 cousins, that when the crime is basically manifest right there and then, he can basically show it. Again, that's something. That's where the human aspect of the human aspect of the avatar comes in. As Shankar, as we discussed last week, as Shankar drank the Kalkut, Yudhishthira, the human aspect of Dharma, drank the Kalkut or the calumny of being the gambler, that he be called the gambler. But he, as Dharma manifest, is the one who saves Draupadi. Draupadi. Shankar never claimed Amrit, and Yudhishthira never claimed the saviorhood of in the public eye. And this is another very important part. He's where the avatar is teaching us, is that he claimed his redemption through the human means as a guide to the humanity across. This dyut happens at the 10,000, around 10,000 shloks has happened, right? When the dyut happens, when this thing happens, right? 90,000 shloks are left in the epic. And in that 90,000 shloks, we see the whole redemption cycle of the avatar as he basically walks into the immortal realm at the end of the epic in his mortal coils. That everybody is redeemable, and everybody, no soul left behind. You could say, everybody has a chance to redeem, and he gives chances. He gives 13 more years for everybody to redeem themselves. They don't take the chances which is there, but he gives those chances to everybody. And that basically, this aspect where the dharma is not claiming the saviorhood opens it to so many retellings where everybody tries to explain and this miraculous event in human terms. And so they, in various formats and retellings, that is the power of Krishna Devapayan's epic, right? It tells you to imagine that how that savior, everybody can be the savior, everybody can be the criminal. How to fight the criminal inside us is how it is done. In a Malayalam retelling, it is very important. All the when the Shastra is dragging, all the women of the Sabha, all the maid servants of the palace rush into the place, and they basically throw the clothes onto the ground and everything. Not us. So even the lowliest elements from the society are rising up against it, and that's where eventually Dhritarashtra realizes that there's going to be a big problem because of this, and he says, ask anything, and Draupadi asks only two. Said, rest my husband can take. Otherwise, he was going to become like he stopped Dhritarashtra from being Chirag Kajin, that give um, uh, uh, three boons. So this event was necessary, which Krishna Devapayana set in motion because of the Bhumi Bharan project. This event, Krishna would have avoided it. Dharma stopped it and did not then claim the saviorhood. And that is a very important part of this story here. Uh, and eventually, that justice was given for this. Dharma, the other aspect of Dharma is Yama. And it was Hari, son of Dharma, manifest as Bhim, who kills the 100 Kauravas. It is Nar, son of Dharma, manifest as Arjun, guided by Narayana, son of Dharma, manifest as Krishna, who basically are the executors. They are the executioners of the dharma, the Yama Dharma themselves in the end. So and we will see from the shlokas in the sea that it's dharma. It's very clearly manifest that dharma is there, but it's the beautiful part of this Indian culture that we are giving it thing up to the God himself. Like, eventually he will provide. And that's where I said that this is a very nice misconception to continue.
So,
Because
like we say, Vishwamidam Vishnumayam. So, everything is.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And there are two questions. So, as I just put the questions on the screen, I would request Roopal also to please join in and
Yeah,
share
sure.
your views on this episode.
Yeah, so like Pranshu has said very beautifully, actually, that this myth is actually a very beautiful thing because it says what we are as a people. We believe in God, and ultimately we leave everything to God. Like, so many depictions of the Chirharan scene are there in which Draupadi has both her hands extended, in supplication to God. That God, you are going to do everything because humans around me have failed. And the depiction of Krishna coming there to save her, that actually says it about us, that we believe that God saves everything, God does everything. And
Inside us.
God is inside us, God is around us, God is in everyone. So actually, if you think about it, whatever happened, and it's written in the epic also, that whatever has happened for a reason. All the events that happened for a reason, and it was to reduce the burden on Prithvi, basically. So all the events were, like, you can say, they were pre-planned, they were part of the bigger plan. And this myth of Krishna saving Draupadi, of course, like, it's a beautiful myth, of course, but again, in the context of the epic itself, it Krishna was not there. The human avatar of Vishnu, Krishna, present on the planet at the time, he was not there. He did not even know of it. He was kept out of it because he was fighting a battle. When he comes to know of it, what has happened to the Pandavas when they were already in exile, and he comes to see them for the first time, so he is like, the human part of him, he's moved beyond words, and he's like, had I been there, I would have stopped it. I would not have allowed the game to continue. I would have stopped it. And then the Pandavas actually ask him that, where were you? That you did not even know of what happened to us. And then he tells them that I was fighting Shal, the king of Sob. And there's a description of the battle also and everything. But the point remains that the human Krishna was not there. See, the problem is, sometimes, like, moved by bhakti element, of course, we sometimes forget the difference between the human avatar and the omniscient, omnipresent God. That is the problem. When God takes an avatar in human form, he is bound by the limitations of humanity also.
And he
Like,
gives us the choice. When he
exactly,
convinces everybody to change sides, also he's giving us the choice. He's making everybody
exactly,
make their own decisions. He doesn't want to be the dictator. Like, I'm the God. I say you do it this way, my way or the highway. He doesn't allow that.
exactly,
He
exactly.
says everybody has their own way. Yeah.
Even in Gita, there's a very important shlok in Gita, in which, after telling everything to Arjun, Krishna tells him that, now I've told you everything that I needed to tell you, that was to be said. Now it's up to you what you want to do. Whether you want to fight, whether you want to leave and go off into the jungles to meditate, or whatever. The choice is yours.
And there's
So,
always Nakula.
yeah.
Yeah, and we have.
So believing that, that just because Krishna was there and he was behaving like a master puppeteer, pulling all the chains, that is something that we need to think again. We need to revisit that thing. Krishna, an avatar of Vishnu, yes, but he was also bound by the rules of humanity. He could not just appear and disappear, ting ting ting, like they show in serials. No,
See,
that is not how it could have happened.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we have
So
two questions about this particular incident. The
So
first one is
Gandhar,
where
Yeah, so one is that Draupadi is said that she runs towards Gandhari's palace, but
Yeah.
Gandhari had closed the doors, and that is a very telling instrument there, that Gandhari was literally part of this. She may have been part of the whatever. She shut herself away. She was either thinking. I mean, again, I was saying, I was telling Roopal that if somebody misses a phone call, it's not because they're ignoring you. There could be a lot of other reasons.
Yeah.
So the thing is, Gandhari may just have realized this is not a good thing to do, and she may have just shut herself away. So that's why her doors were closed. It's not that she did it deliberately, right?
But was she present in the dice hall?
No, she was. See, that's
At the end,
so that's the thing. When the thing was,
when the incident happens.
Incident was happening, maybe she did come out at the end, but I don't remember whether she was there at the end of it. And
No, I don't remember Gandhari being there at all.
Okay, and
she was called into she was specifically called into the hall when Krishna was there in the Bhagavad Yan Parv.
In the Bhagavad Yan Parv, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
so there's a related question.
Yeah.
So that is, it says that Krishna says, I would have brought in Bhishma, Drona, Bahalika, but weren't they all present? So I think probably it means that they were present. He would have asked them to.
Yeah, he would have empowered them. He would have empowered them to raise their voice, and that's where the point is. Bhishma, Drona, and Bahalik actually committed their own, chain of event destiny to their own uddhar in the end by actually, breaking the Dharma themselves, so that they would actually then suffer the defeats there when that happened in the war.
So shall we move to the next myth?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So this is a very popular one. Shakuni used the bones of his father to make the dice with which he defeated the Pandavas. This is, of course, probably from folklore, because the versions of the Mahabharata do not have any reference to this. It says that he cheated, but it does not say. And in fact, for those who don't know, the story is that Shakuni and his family were imprisoned, and his family members give up their food so that Shakuni survives. And then, in the end, he wants to take revenge against the Kauravas. And after his father dies, he uses his bones to play dice, and his father's spirit is in the bones. So that is the story.
Yeah,
So what is the reality?
So it's actually a very interesting folk story. The folk story starts with that Bhim one day, see, Duryodhan always doubted the parentage of Pandavas. And one day Bhim supposedly calls him back and says, hey, you are the son of a widow. And that's when it is said that, and this is where the superstition and other elements come into play, that Gandhari was told that her first husband would die early, so she was married to a goat.
Yeah.
The goat was sacrificed, and then she was married to Dhritarashtra. Now, and so that's where when Duryodhan learns of it, he's so angry, he imprisons his maternal clan, and they put them inside a prison, and where only one grain of rice was given every day. So they all basically give it to Shakuni, that you survive. And so all of them die. In the end, Shakuni survives, and he basically makes the dice from the bones to revenge his family. Now, this is a popular folktale which is there in all across, in a lot of dynamics.
In fact, there are various variations also to this tale. In many, it is not Duryodhan who does this. It is actually Dhritarashtra who learns that Gandhari had been married off to a goat before me, and he imprisons Shakuni and his brothers. In another one, it is Bhim who does that to blackmail them for marrying Gandhari to the blind Dhritarashtra. They were unwilling, and Bhishma is actually the one who imprisons everyone and forces the marriage to take place, basically. So they're very this thing.
But actually, so one of the original stories which comes from Brihat Katha and around that period is that Nandas, who were the kings of Magad, they imprisoned their kinsmen, the Kshatriyas of Pipivahan, the Mauryas. And so Mauryas basically decide that we will give all the food to the youngest, and Chandragupta Maurya survives. On the bones of his father, he then avenges that I will do the avenge. Of course, in 1905, we discovered somewhere that, in a library, Royal Library, Travancore, that there is somebody called Chanakya also. And suddenly now Chanakya is so much part of our culture. But for 2000 years, we had forgotten him totally. And it was like for 80 years, like, there were four generations of British scholars and archaeologists and historians trying to prove it is not Buddha who put those inscriptions out there, Sarnath pillar and everything. It was somebody called Ashoka. And we found it, कि घर के पिछवाड़े में निकले वो. Basically there's a famous couplet in Urdu that जिसको ढूंढते थे शाम सवेरे वो घर के पिछवाड़े में निकले. So all of a sudden, like, the serendipitous find we have in this library, Royal Library at Travancore. Later on, we found the Bhasa plays and everything in the same
Yeah.
area. So this is again the folklore is there not only for this but for other dynasties also, where they're the like Prithvi Vallabh, and the story comes across the Chalukyas, the western Chalukyas also, later Chalukyas also. So this story is about it. But now let's see what's there about the Shakuni's family in Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, Shakuni's brothers come to fight in the battle.
Exactly.
To fight. Iravan kills 5 on one day and maims the sixth one. Another day, Vrishak and Achal, the younger brothers of Shakuni, are killed by Arjun. Abhimanyu kills a couple of them on the 13th day during his campaign in the Chakravyuh. So and again we meet the family of Shakuni very much alive, very much
Yes.
alive and fighting. And now we also know the genealogy of Shakuni. Shakuni was son of Subal, who was son of Nagnajit. Nagnajit is also father of Krishna's wife, one of
One of
Krishna's
Ashtabharya, yes.
Ashtabharya, yeah, Shanmahishi. This Nagnajit is different because, like, all the kings of Mithila are called Jana. All the crown princes of Kekai are called Ashwapati, horse lord. All the kings of Gandhar are probably called Nagnajit because this name comes again and again. And again, who were the kings of Gandhar? It's Bharat's son Taksh and Pushkar. They founded the cities Pushkalavati and Takshila. Then they were the rulers of. But here it is not really like exactly like the solar dynasty or lunar dynasty, because it is a matriarchal society in the west, right? Mother and the west of India.
Yes.
The Bhanja, the son of the sister used to be the heir. So Shakuni, as and again in the beginning also, we are told, like, Shakuni's father, he is actually living in Savir. So he was probably not even a crowned king. And later on, when Krishna defeated Nagnajit, married his daughter, he actually rescued a lot of kings who were trapped and captured by Nagnajit, who was probably a dictatorial king. So Shakuni might have actually become king because of Krishna, right? So this is a very, and another very important part is we are told the names of the others. So Shalle, for example, right? Shalle is son of Artayan and he's also called Katavya. So one of his grandfathers is Kitav. And so is Shakuni and Uluk are called Katavya. They are descendants of Kitav. So Shakuni is not only Mama to Duryodhan, he is also Mama to Nakul Sadev also.
Yes.
They have a common grandfather. So that's something. So basically, where we are again and again told. So if Shalle's family is cousin, right? Shalle is a cousin, then they have a common grandfather with Shakuni. If his kinsman has been killed, that is the biggest thing you can do. He would never have fought for Duryodhan. He fought for Duryodhan even though he was trapped into it, but he would not have fought for Duryodhan either way, because Shalle is blood kin, and that's why we talked about kinship. Blood kinship is very important to the whole culture itself, and it has come down to our side also, that family is one very very powerful, and it has its negative elements also, that
Exactly.
but family is the basis from where you start everything, and that's what Vidur also starts it. That sometimes we love family too much. Tejate, tejate, tejate. He says, for success of a village, you might have to sacrifice the family. For the success of a country, you have to sacrifice the village. For success of humanity itself, you have to sacrifice the country, right? So you have to tyag. So that tyag has to be also part of. So again, so basically, as we said about it, that this is definitely a very nice another myth to have, but it is definitely folklore. We have evidence in the Mahabharata that his entire family is present, and they can come and fight, and and after the war also in Ashwamedh Parva, uh, Shakuni's son is the king in Gandhar. So that's where Arjun meets him and spares his life, because the blood debt has been paid now in Mahabharata.
Exactly.
In
Exactly.
the Kurukshetra. Oh, Deepak, you're on mute. Oh, Deepak, you're on mute. Hi, Deepak, you're on
Okay,
mute.
this is one of the most popular myth, which is of Karna giving up the Kawacha and Kundalas. So Karna is always referred to as Danavira Karna or Danashura Karna. So because he gave up his Kawacha and Kundalas, knowing what the consequences would be. So that's why he's supposed to be a great act of charity. So what is the reality? Is this uh, is this exactly as it is depicted, or is reality something else?
Well, this image has become so famous now, of Karna giving away his Kavach and Kundalan donation. It has been lauded in pictures and images and TV serials and books and stories and novels everywhere. But what everyone forgets to add, either forgets or they ignore it altogether, or maybe they're themselves not aware of it, is that Karn.
Oh, I think she got frozen a little. So Kern basically, it was a sort of a commercial transaction
Yes.
where Kern basically exchanged the Kavach Kundal for the Vasavi Shakti. The Vasavi Shakti will allow uh, Kern to kill one person definitely, and he basically had this obsession with Arjuna, and so he even told Kern had no concept. He had told Krishna before the war itself that Yudhishthira is going to be the king. He had seen Duryodhana's death. He actually walked into that battle only for one and one reason only, to have his rivalry with Arjun played out on a bigger scale. He didn't even want to fight under Bhishma.
No, sorry, I think I
Before.
got disconnected.
No problem. Go ahead. Yeah, take.
Yeah. So, like as I was saying, so the day Indra came in the guise of a Brahman to ask for the Kavach and Kundal, like a day before that, in his dreams, Lord Surya had visited Karn and told him what was going to happen. That Indra is going to come, he's going to ask for your Kavach and Kundal. Don't give it to him. And Karn, in his dreams, he says, "How can I not? Like, it would give me so much." And here, it is like Karn is more this mindful of his reputation, that it's going to harm my reputation if someone asks me of something and I do not give it in charity. And then Surya says, "Okay, fine. If you have to give it, you give it. But then you ask Indra for his Vasavi dart, his Shakti, in exchange." And that is exactly what Karn does. Like, there is a quotation there, which when during the Kundal Haran Parv, when Indra, in the guise of Brahman, he asks for the Kavach and Kundal, and then he refuses that these are made of Amrit. These are what protect me from death. I'm not going to give it to you. And then he says, "I know who you are. I know you are Indra, and I will give it to you only when you give me your Vasavi dart, your Shakti, and not without it, because otherwise my enemies are going to kill me." So it is very clearly an exchange. Karn was he had lost many battles, even with Kavach and Kundal. It's not like he could not be defeated. The only thing was he could not be killed. So he had already an experience of what life was like with Kavach and Kundal. He has already been like, throughout his life, he was obsessed with defeating Arjun. And he knew this was going to be the Kurukshetra war was going to be, a final battle, a final showdown, his last chance, basically. So he makes this tactical decision to exchange the armor and earrings, which would stop him from being killed, for a weapon that could actually give him victory over Arjun. So it is a choice that he makes as a warrior. And, like, frankly, I'm with him in this. It's like, for a warrior, it is far more considered glorious to die in battle very valiantly, rather than being unable to defeat your foe and still living in glory, in glorious life, basically. And that is exactly
There
what
is
Kern
a
chooses.
question mark over the Danavira part, because he did not do it voluntarily or without expecting anything. It was, like you said, a commercial transaction.
It is a
Yes,
commercial transaction.
it is an exchange. It is totally
Barter.
and absolutely an exchange. It is not a dan. Like if we are going to give, like even if a beggar asks us for money, if we give him 10 rupees and then we say, oh, I'm giving you 10 rupees, but you know, I like the necklace you're wearing, give it to me. Is that really, is that really a dan? No, it's not. So
And,
This
that
is
is what,
another myth.
yeah.
True. Yeah, true,
and,
Pranshu.
and so another part of it is that Indra, like, he basically, Indra, like Yudhishthir, gets the calumny that he's afraid of every rishi who's doing tapas, and he sends apsaras, or he sends demons, or he sends somebody to distract them all the time. But this is actually, in our culture, we have multiple levels of it. Even Vasudev says, right, in Gita 18th chapter, slok 62-64 period, that there are worlds above which even he himself cannot go, because he's outside that reality, and he won't be able to come back because he has achieved higher. Each Indra fights to become, not fights, like say, perseveres to become the Nath at the next level. So Bhu Bhuva Swaha Tattva Teja Mahar Tej and other lokas in Brahma Lok and Satya Lok, right? As we go up, right? So basically, that's where the every Indra wants to become a Nath in the next level, the Mahar Lok, right? So he finds and he chooses his replacement, and this replacement he tests with everything, greed, or Apsaras, for example, uh, the kings, the the asuras, like, by scaring them. And so when he goes through all these three tests, the next person becomes the next Indra. So this is here, Indra is actually testing his son Arjun by giving the weapon to the enemy. And in a way, Indra is actually throwing a little bit of a challenge to his younger brother Upendra,
Yeah.
Vishnu. Hey, brother, I'm doing this. Now you find a way around it. And he does.
And even then, while giving the Vasavi dart, like even before, Indra actually warns Karn that I know what is in your mind. I know why you want this weapon from me, but let me warn you that this will not help you in the scheme of things, because the your foe is being protected by Narayan himself.
Exactly. And that's
So
that's
it's
the other
not
part
like
of it.
it was under any misconception. There was no misconception involved. It was just that Karn made a tactical choice that, instead of like, what I think of it as, frankly, is like the Kawacha and Kundal of Karn, it gave him a very unfair advantage over other warriors. He
It
cannot be killed.
actually
The
gave him
others can.
another, even Arjun's oath during the Dyut, that I will kill you, gave Karna actually a very another unfair advantage, because Bhima, Satyaki, all Abhimanyu, they all could have killed Karna, but
Exactly.
Arjun
And
had
that
taken
and
the
that is
oath to
another
kill.
aspect of it, that when
Yeah,
people say that Karn promised Kunti that, I will spare the lives of your four sons,
and
only
all of
Arjun
them
I
could
will
have
kill.
killed him.
The thing
All of
is,
them could have killed him.
he's also protected from all the four brothers because of
Exactly.
Arjun's oath.
Yes.
Bhim
Bhim says
actually
that.
spares his life. Bhim
Yeah,
actually
Bhim,
spares his
Bhim
life
actually says to
twice.
Arjun, because of
Yeah,
your oath, I cannot, really kill him.
exactly. Exactly. Bhim spares his life twice. So it is like, when he gives that promise to Kunti that I will not kill four of your sons, he gave it knowing full well that he's also safe from those four sons.
Exactly. So that's
So this
that's
is another
actually
myth disproved.
exactly.
Yes.
So we'll
I
go to
don't
the
know if it's
last myth for
disproved
the
yet
day.
because people
Yeah.
love holding on to it, but yeah,
Yeah,
that is
that's
what
right.
it is.
Now, this is probably the biggest misconception about the Mahabharata, which is that Sanjaya was seeing, live TV, and he was giving commentary to Dhritarashtra, explaining ball by ball what is happening in the war. So,
Yes.
Exactly.
what is the reality?
So so
Yeah,
basically,
Pranshu.
okay, so yeah, so each of the Parvas, Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and Challe, they all start with Sanjay returning back from the battlefield and telling Dhritarashtra this has happened. And this is also reflected in the size of these Parvas. If you look at it, Sanjay, when he comes back for the first time after 10 days, when Bhisham has fallen, So he comes back, and you can tell that there is actually a much faster, like, he rushes through that because he's telling a lot of the story together in a single setting. He has to get back to the war when it will start again. He's traveling about 100 kilometers a yojan, like, like 7-10 yojans, right? He's traveling 100 kilometers away from Hastinapur to Kurukshetra, back and forth. So then that's another point basically we wanted to talk about, is that each time when he comes in there and he tells the story, right, it's at a very crucial juncture when they're probably stopped the war, because the war basically has a very important time factor. On the 18th day of war, when the 18th day the Duryodhan and Bhim are fighting, Balram returns from his 42-day pilgrimage, and he starts his pilgrimage the day before the war starts. So 42 calendar days have elapsed, whereas only 18 war days have elapsed. So there is actually evidence inside the epic itself that, the, he had time. They would
That the
stop.
war was not continuously being fought every day. After, I
Yes,
think, the fall of each major Maharathi or
even the
commander of
sixth day,
Kaurava
even on
forces.
this. Even on the
Yeah.
sixth day, they stop the war a little early because the animals are so tired. The soldiers are so tired. They stop a war a little earlier on the sixth day, right?
Yes.
Because they're basically and so they are taking these breaks to give, we are not going to basically, we are not merciless kshatriyas, right, forcing the animals and the warriors to fight every day. So there is obviously some gaps here, and you can see even in the story of Abhimanyu, when Abhimanyu falls, right, and Deepak has written about it. When Abhimanyu falls, they send the message to Uplave, which is about 200 kilometers away, and they bring the woman over, and they do the last rites of so and then Narad comes and he tells those 16 stories about the 16 great kings to try to console Yudhishthir. So there's actually a gap here where basically, they are uh, they are waiting for the war to restart, and when they restart, they go in with the hue with the oath that at the end of the day, I'm going to, end of this battle day, I'm going to kill Jadrat. And that's where basically, and so they take a breathers again and again. And there's another point, basically, I had noticed that, and maybe I don't remember exactly critical edition, but in when Karnpur, when he returns, when Sanjay returns back and tells Dhritarashtra Karna has fallen, then Dhritarashtra asks him who has died and who is left, right, in the war. And there, when he's telling the who has died in the war, he actually lists some of the warriors who died in the Shalya Parv. So maybe, he may not have returned like every major, but they are like these junctures, like, Bhishma,
Yes.
Drona, and Karn slash Shalya, or both. You may have returned two times. Because the another point where we come back is that in the beginning in Mahabharata, in the Adi Parv, we are given a summary on what each parva holds. Shalya has said that there's a genealogy, and the genealogy of the kings who had died will be told, but we never get that when we get to the Shalya Parv. That probably then becomes a part of the Sri Parv, right, when the actual Anteshtis and actual
Yes.
last rites are done. So Mahaparvs were different from the Parvs itself. So that's where a very important point is. This is definitely not like. And then finally, Sanjay fights the battle. There are several occasions where he's telling, "I'm moving with the army to this location, that location." On the
That, and plus there is mention of him donning the armor. He gets caught by Drishtadyumna, who's like, let's kill him. But
That's
then
Sataki,
Vyas
displayed on the
comes there
screen.
to save him, and he throws
Sataki
away
captures
his,
him,
yeah, and then he throws away his armor. That, okay, look, I'm armed now.
and then Vedvyas comes and saves him. Vedvyas says,
Yes.
He
"Okay,
has to
don't kill
save
this
him
guy. He's
because
a
otherwise
journalist."
Dhritarashtra will not get to know the
No,
news.
no, no. He's basically Vedvyas first time. So this is the first time a journalist
Yes, yes,
has been given credentials on the battlefield.
yes. And this is something which has never been spoken about. We
Exactly.
don't see it in any TV
Yes. I mean,
serials. We do not
they're
see it
like,
in any movies.
in the beginning of every parva, like Pranshu said, Bhishma Parva, Drona Parva, Karna Parva, Shalya Parva, there is a mention of Sanjay going to Dhritarashtra and telling him that this is what happened, then we saw that, then this happened, then we saw that. He's saying, then we is not, I am sitting here in your palace all the time and seeing a live commentary on cable TV. No, that is him returning. I mean, it's written there that he was tired. On tired horses, he entered the city of the elephants, Hastinapur. So it is
Yeah, that is
plainly written
displayed on
that
the
he has
screen.
returned from
Second itself.
Kurukshetra.
And each telling also has got a specific length. The Bhisham Vadh Parv, the 10 first 10 battles, first 10 days is about 10 battles, is basically 4,000 verses or so. Then till Abhimanyu comes, Abhimanyu's death is another 4,000 verses. Then the 14th day is 4,000 verses themselves. But so that's why he's basically he's telling you that whole thing in one sequence. He's telling that whole section and in these sizes. And so Karn Parv is also quite big. Karn Parv is actually in the northern edition, it's about 8,000 verses, 103, 105 chapters. In the critical edition, they turn like it's about
They
16.
chop some of it. Yeah.
Again, back to your 4,000, 5,000 verse limit, and then 3,000 verses for Shalya Parv. So that's basically what the retelling he's doing that in that day. Because you see, even the 14th day, for example, right? And these are obviously the perv, like the perv. Okay, so let's explain what the perv are. When Parmeshti asks Vyas to write the story, and he says, "I need help, somebody to write it down." And uh, and Ganesh comes, and Ganesh. It's not in critical edition, but in northern edition and southern edition,
Yes.
which comes and he writes. He writes for 3 years, 1,080 perv, of which we have 100 perv, because 1,080 pervs were written down for the Devas or 60 lakh shlok version. And then, Narad has a 30 lakh shlok version, and then Asit Deval has that 15 lakh shlok version, and then 14 lakh shlok version, and 1 lakh shlok version for us, the 100 parvas. So again, so that's basically we have so Mahabharata itself an edited text where 100 of the 1,080 parvas are there. And so if you look at some of the battles, for example, the 14th day battle, it's actually more than one parv. It takes more than one parv for Vyas to tell to Ganesh, right? To write it down. So obviously they were talking about days here, and then the description of it will take equally amount of time. So that's the time basically which Sanjay takes is the breaks between the battles, and so it's very very clear that there was never a live commentary here.
Exactly.
He had
So
been
this is like all the people who say that there was cable TV during the time of Mahabharata. They'll probably be
yeah.
disappointed, but yes, there was
I
no
mean,
cable
this
TV
looks
for that.
nice from the point of telling a story that Sanjay was giving live commentary, but the fact is otherwise.
Yes, I mean
Exactly.
it's probably not very simple to show in a TV show. Maybe that's why
That's
they
right.
show that Sanjay is all the time with Dhritarashtra and he's just staring into the distance and
I mean,
seeing
it's difficult
everything.
to show that he fights the battle and then comes running here, tells the story, goes back. So probably for the sake of convenience, it became
Yes,
easier
it's
to
more
show it in
expedient
this.
to just show him in one place all the time, but it was not like that. I mean, people
And
would be surprised at how few the actual magical chamatkar moments are there in
Yes.
Mahabharata. They
exactly,
are very
it's a
very
human
few.
epic.
So
The
that's the
human
purpose
epic
of
of
this series, to try
Exactly.
and present facts. And
Yes.
these facts are based on the authentic sources. In this case, we are showing from the critical edition. So Pranshu was referring to other editions like the southern and northern edition. So through these facts, our aim is to try and let people know what is the reality, what is
Yes.
misconception, and what is reality. So this is yet another myth exploded. So with that, we come to the end of this episode, but we will be back with more myths, more facts, and more discussions. And there is a suggestion here which has come on a myth to be shown. Vijay Krishnan says that there is a misconception of Karna's role in Abhimanyu's death. So please clarify this, he says. So in a future session, we'll take it up. In fact, this is Pranshu was suggesting this, that viewers can suggest myths and we can take it up for
Yes.
discussion. So
yeah.
we will definitely do that in a future episode. So I think with that we come to the end of this session. So Pranshu, would you like to sum up and say something?
So yeah, basically, again, the main idea is that we have used the critical edition as the basis of it, and in and the myths we have picked up, none of them actually appear in any of the major editions of the Mahabharata, either the northern or the southern. So even without the great effort of Sir and the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Center of working for 48 years from 1990 to 1967 to create the critical edition, even without that, we have identified these myths which are which are not there in actual telling. I mean, of course, the Shakuni's telling, everybody would know that Shakuni's die story because Chanda Mama in 1970s covered the whole Mahabharata across like 6-7 years, right? And every
Every
edition
issue would have a small story or
story
some
is
small episode. Yeah.
actually big, like about 14 pages, and I have all of them. And they're basically even the Shakuni's, this dice story is there because it is something which sort of livens it up. It sort of seasons like a spices,
No,
but
exactly. See,
but
all these retellings, they are interesting in their own way. They are. And they show us something about the culture of that time where they sprang up. Like, even if you see the story of Shakuntala, the way it is told in Mahabharata is different from the way Kalidas later wrote in Abhimanyu Shakuntala. And it again
exactly.
shows the difference of the time. What it was like when Vyas wrote that tale and what it was like when Kalidas wrote that tale.
And
So these
exactly,
are
or
interesting.
Kamba, even in Ramayana, Kamba Ramayana is,
Exactly.
we basically, not the Valmiki Ramayana, it's the Kamba Ramayana basically which dominates our cultural sphere because it's
Yes,
not only
yes.
later, but it also has a little bit more of this spicy things, which enliven the
Yes,
human experience of the
and
epic.
it's the same with Ramcharitmanas. Like everyone in the north, especially when they think of Ramayana, instead of Valmiki Ramayana, they think of Ramcharitmanas. So, and obviously, when Tulsidas composed Ramcharitmanas, the times were really very different. And he composed his magnum opus keeping his own sensibilities in mind. And that's what these retellings are. So, they are very interesting in their own right. But we should also know that what is actually in the original epics and what
Right.
people have added through the ages. So there
Exactly.
should be a difference in that. And we should be aware of those differences.
And that's why people keep on saying that, like trying to even say justify somebody like Ravana, that Ravana basically did not touch Sita, but he could not touch
Oh,
Sita without killing himself. It's not
Probably
because
we
no.
need to have a
The
series on
killing is an
Ramayana.
euphemism.
actually
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ramayana's myths also.
especially this
Yeah.
one.
The
It
touching of
deserves an entire
Sita is,
episode for discussion.
yeah.
Exactly.
And Ravan touching Sita is actually a euphemism for rape.
Yes.
He could not like rape a woman. That is what it was. I mean, touching is different. Yeah. I mean, you can also touch the feet of a lady. And when he kidnapped Sita, like people believe that, he dug out the earth on which Sita was standing and he took it that on Pushpak Viman. No, he actually, there's a very violent description of the way he kidnapped Sita. So, of course, I mean, people will believe what they want to believe at the end of the day, but it is our duty to actually say what is written in the epics, basically.
And Vijay has said the right thing that is apart from the seasoning, it is sometimes the human need to find answers to try to explain something which they may not get the full picture of. And this is the point. That's why I said that Yudhishthir, like as Semantani said, Yudhishthir gets painted as a gambler at the 10% point in epic when the 90% of the epic is still remaining, right?
Probably he's the
40,000.
most reviled person in the
Yeah, he
Mahabharata
just becomes the
for
most.
this
But
particular
that's
act.
the idea that he takes upon himself that calumny, so that basically he gives the lesson for the future, right? He basically gives the guide that everything is redeemable. You cannot basically blame Tendulkar after 136 runs to get out when his back is hurting hell. With 12 runs needed to win, and then the other four got out, and India lost the match. You can't blame Tendulkar or Pant from hitting the stroke. He hit the same stroke in England, and everybody said he took the bowling by the scruff and won us the match. But the next time it doesn't. So that is basically again and again the Yudhishthir being played in front of us again and again on a daily basis. But that is never the end of the story. That's always the idea that you can always recover, you can redeem, and you can go from. And again, it tells us to look at the whole picture.
Yes, and it also says like what I believe is that when we look at the epics, basically we are looking into a mirror. How we see things is how we ourselves prefer to see things. Like blaming Yudhishthir, like blaming a man for just one lapse in judgment. just one instance, just one lapse in judgment, when he always did the right thing everywhere else. He actually made it a point to atone for his mistake the way that nobody else did in the epic, and still he gets blamed. So that is like, we are the kind of people who basically, we will not forgive a good man for one mistake that he did, but we are ready to, embrace people who are mostly bad, who
And
will do
like,
just
and
one good thing here and there.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's the thing, that Ravana being unable to do something is being made into a nice guy, where
Yeah,
for one mistake he's being painted as a villain, where the Ravana, for one thing he had no control on, is being made a nice guy. So that's the
yeah, exactly. That's like how we think. Epics are like mirrors. They reflect
The
exact.
back
same
what is
way in which
inside us.
Karna and Duryodhana are glorified nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a tendency to glorify the anti-hero. So
And
it's
yeah,
that's
an
where the
unfortunate
bhasa
way.
plays, the Pratinayaka. That's the bhasa,
Yeah.
Pratinayak. And that's why
yeah,
I put in that thing about Chanakya being found in, because just after that they discovered the bhasa plays and the Pratinayak. So that actually is basically from, it's not even 100 years of, about 110 years old. This whole idea of Pratinayak and glorification of Duryodhan and Karna just comes from the bhasa plays, where he had deliberately violated the rules of Natya Shastra, which probably were not set in his time, by actually doing the Pratinayak as the, because in those days, the main aim, we didn't have ZTV or other TV and CNN and other things, right? The plays were, the people were basically, after a hard day's labor, they'll go out and they will see the play. And that's why the rule of Natya Shastra is, when they go back home, they carry home a nice message and a happy ending. So but in the case of Bhasa plays, you don't have happy ending. You have broken thighs and cut heads.
yes,
So,
exactly.
so
I'm sorry, I have to leave now. Basically, I'm
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
really short on
we have
time.
So
also done.
So
thank you so
thank you
much,
so
Roopal, for
much for
joining.
a
Thank you so
very
much.
wonderful session.
Yeah.
You guys,
So
you're
hope to
doing
see you in the future again,
beautiful initiative. You
joining
guys have
us.
started. Thank you so much. But I'll have to
Yeah, hope to
rush
see
off
you
now.
back.
So sorry. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
So that's the cue for us to end this program. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pranshu. So we'll be back again next week with more myths. So thank you
Right.
and
Thank
good
you.
night.